It's been said that a failure to plan is a plan to fail, and that couldn't really be more true when it comes to portaging at Northern Tier.
Hey, real quick, right before we jump into this video, if you'd do me a huge favor and hit that like button. Also, thank you for subscribing to this channel. If you'd like to be notified of future videos, please hit that bell icon. Have a great day and enjoy this video.
Your paddling adventure will have portages. Portages are a part of the paddling experience, and the ability to move everything overland opens up the map and gives your crew many options to go exploring. And it's sad to me to hear of crews that are afraid of portaging that really limits themselves and their adventure. So what is a portage plan, and why is having a plan important? Well, a portage plan is simply a plan on how your crew will transit everyone and all of the equipment overland, from the arrival side of the portage trail, along the portage trail, to the departure side of the portage trail. Having a plan makes this transit efficient so that your crew isn't wasting time and energy, and having a plan greatly reduces the chance of leaving something behind. Before we get into this video, there is a companion video that explains options for portaging equipment. These portaging options are ideal for crews with participants that weigh less than 150 pounds and really closer to 125 pounds. And that also may be shorter or struggle to carry a canoe. So don't get overwhelmed after watching this video. Also watch my portage plan options video. And now back to how to create a portage plan for your crew. Let's take an inventory of a typical 8-person crew and their equipment. Well, there are the 3 canoes. The Kevlar canoes weigh about 55 pounds and the aluminum canoes weigh about 80 pounds. That also includes the weight of the 3rd row seat, the yoke pads, and the throw bag that goes in each canoe. Of course, there are the 8 participants and 1 interpreter. Everybody has a paddle, so in this case there are 9 paddles. There will be 3 whale bags, 1 for each canoe, to hold that canoe's personal equipment. Those weigh about 75 pounds each. There will be 2 to 3 food bags, depending on the length of the trip, and those start off at about 75 pounds when they're full. I need to break in here and explain the 3rd food bag. The 3rd food bag exchanges 2 100-pound food bags for 3 75-pound food bags. That may not sound like much, but that's a huge difference in weight to the participant carrying one of those food bags. Because, depending on several factors, the easiest of which to measure is the participant's body weight, it can help lower the risk of injury to that participant. Now, even if you are on one of the longer treks, your crew may not be issued a 3rd food bag by Northern Tier. However, you can ask for a 3rd food bag. Start with a conversation with your interpreter, and then with the folks at the commissary, the place where you get your food. Now understand that Northern Tier may not be able to give your crew a 3rd food bag. If you can get a 3rd food bag, in this video I want to show you how your crew can efficiently portage with a 3rd food bag. If you cannot get a 3rd food bag, if your crew has a couple of folks that weigh around 200 pounds, then these folks should try to carry the 100-pound food bag. But for more portaging ideas, watch my video on portaging options. And now, let's get back to the video. There's the kitchen, which holds all of the cooking supplies and crew gear. This is also known as the kettle at Northern Tier, and this bag weighs about 50 pounds. Then the interpreter will have a whale bag, which is about 50 pounds. And then if your crew is going to take fishing gear, there is also the fishing gear. So as you can see, that is a lot of stuff. Also want to remind you that I don't want to say it's the worst case, but this is probably the most stuff that you could have as a crew. So if you don't want to go fishing, you're not going to have the fishing gear. If you're not going on one of the longer treks, you're not going to have the extra food bag. So keep all that in mind. How is this crew going to move all this equipment in one trip? Now, I can understand if this all seems a little overwhelming, but congratulations, you're watching this video. And with the knowledge learned, you can get your crew organized and put together a plan before you arrive at Northern Tier. So at least your crew won't be stuck at your first Portage site with a line of crews behind you waiting for you to get out of the way. To start creating our plan, let's get this crew organized. First, as a crew, identify the crew's 3 most proficient paddlers. Proficient meaning they are great at keeping the canoe headed in the desired direction for long periods of time. They can read the water and make adjustments to the canoe's course given the route and environmental conditions such as wind. Ideally, a proficient paddler will be placed in the stern of each canoe. As a reminder, this is just to start the trip. Within a couple of days, hopefully everyone's paddling skills have improved dramatically and boat crews can rotate through the 3 crew positions in the canoe. Also note, the interpreter should not be paddling, at least for the start of the trip. The interpreter needs to be available to help the crew with things such as time management, navigation, and paddling. Once the 3 most proficient paddlers have been assigned to a boat crew, it is now time to assign other people to each boat crew. Second, someone in each boat crew needs to carry that boat crew's canoe. This person should be able to pick up the canoe, transit the canoe overland, and lower the canoe back to the water all by themselves. This is really, really important for the efficiency of the whole portage. So this brings up an interesting point. It's often asked, how tall do you have to be to carry one of the canoes by yourselves? And honestly, there's not a good answer to that question. You could be 6 foot tall and don't know how to carry a canoe carefully, and that would be just as damaging to the canoe. If you were short and you could carry the canoe carefully by yourself, but due to the environmental circumstances you may find yourself in, such as steep terrain or the water is deep at the entry at the arrival or departure site, it just puts you in a bad situation where you just can't help but bang the canoe on the deck. So there's not really a great answer. At some point, a shorter person will just find it very difficult to navigate deeper entry and exit points on the arrival and departure side due to the deep water, but then also if the terrain is rocky, there's a lot of boulders around. The canoe is 18 feet long, so that's a lot of length to accommodate for. I mean, one accommodation is you could sidestep out of the water, but then if there's trees right there and boulders, that's not going to allow you to do that. So I'm sorry I don't have a great answer for you. If you just had to press me for an answer, I'd probably say that if you're a little bit less than 5 foot tall, you probably would find it challenging to carry a canoe by yourself and not bang the canoe into the ground, especially the bow or the stern. If the arrival or departure site is anything but a gradual walk out of the water and a gradual walk back down in the water. And then also remember, the portage trails could be anything from basically flat to a very steep hill. So I'm sorry that I can't really give you a good answer. I'm not really comfortable telling people, hey, you're too short to do this. That's not really how I roll. But at some point there is a limit. So Again, this is a plan. Make a plan, try it out. If it doesn't work, make adjustments. Let me pause and recap really quick before we move on. To start off the trip, ideally each boat has a proficient paddler in the stern, and each boat has someone who can carefully move the canoe by themselves. If you can't have both of these traits in the same boat crew, get someone in each boat that can move the canoe by themselves. Everyone will be great at paddling within a short time. Third, each boat crew needs to be self-reliant and transit everything from their canoe on their own. At roughly 75 pounds, the whale bags with the personal equipment and the food bags, when they start off, are the heaviest items in the inventory. Ideally, any participant carrying one of these loads would weigh at least 150 pounds. Can participants weigh less than 150 pounds? Sure, but remember, the lower the difference between the weight of the load and the weight of the participant, this dramatically increases the odds of injury to the participant. At 50 pounds, the kitchen is one of the lightest loads. If you have a participant that is exceptionally lightweight and not tall enough to manage the canoe carefully by themselves, then this participant should carry the kitchen. Ideally, this person would weigh at least 100 pounds. Fourth, everyone knows what their job is and moves the same item every portage. This way, it is less likely something will get left behind. There is less confusion, and the crew is mentally and physically efficient, meaning it will take less mental and physical effort for your crew to transit, which is especially helpful when there are other crews waiting for you to transit and clear the arrival and/or departure site. So let's talk about the weights of some of the things we're carrying, the heavier stuff. It doesn't really matter, but the weight of the whale bags and the food bags when you're just starting off your trip, and personal body weights and how that relates to each other. So these are a bunch of generalized statements. Generally speaking, when you're carrying something that weighs more than 50% of your body weight, above that 50 percentile mark, it gets increasingly more difficult and more challenging for the average person to safely carry that item. All that being said, can you carry something that weighs more than 50% of your body weight? Absolutely. You can weigh something that weighs a lot more than 50% of your body weight. Can you do that safely? I can't answer that question for you. What I can tell you is you do not want to hurt yourself in the backcountry at Northern Tier. There's no easy way home. Okay? You're not going to call 911 and magically get airlifted out of the backcountry and end up back at base camp. That's not going to happen. So if you wrench your back, you break your leg, you hurt yourself, your crew is now in a very interesting position, and they have to manage you, and everybody's trip is essentially over at that point. Let's look at a way to move all of this equipment in one transit. And remember, this is not the only way to do it, but a way to do it. And also remember, depending on each crew's participants' abilities, this may not be possible. So if that is the case of your crew, no worries. Just make adjustments and embrace the experience. Whomever is carrying the canoe cannot have anything in their hands. They will need their hands to hold on to the canoe and keep it balanced. Since they are already carrying the canoe, especially if it's an aluminum canoe, God help you, they do not need to carry any more weight than needed. So, if it is necessary for them to carry a bag in addition to the canoe, it should be the lightest bag available. They also do not need stuff dangling off of the canoe, except for the throw bag. There's no need to get something hung up on a tree, because when you're carrying the canoe, you can't manage that. Also remember, that canoe is your only way home, so it cannot be damaged. The person carrying the canoe has to pass off their paddle to another boat crew member. In this example, to the boat crew member carrying the whale bag with the personal items. Also note that in this example, I'm asking the interpreter to carry the canoe in addition to their interpreter bag, because in this example, the crew has a third food bag, which will be very heavy at the start of the trip. After the first 3 or 4 days, that bag will be empty, and then that person can carry the canoe instead of the interpreter. If you don't have the extra food bag, then this participant can start off carrying the canoe from the beginning of the trip, and the interpreter just has to carry their interpreter bag. Let me make a quick side note here. If you haven't noticed, the paddles are upside down, so therefore they're carried where the blade never touches the ground, because you do not want to accidentally break the blade. And with regard to the fishing gear, this is where the small personal dry bag can come in handy. You can put fishing tackle in that small personal dry bag or your personal life jacket, fishing life jacket if you brought one. So that way the crew does not have another whale bag full of fishing gear to manage on top of everything else. So in this example, the 3 fishing poles, we'll just assume there's 1 per canoe, will be passed to the participants carrying the food bags. So here's the example portage plan I have created for this crew. And we've gone over a lot, so let's summarize what their portage plan is. Boat crew A has a proficient paddler seated in the stern of the canoe. This participant also is capable of transiting the canoe carefully all by themselves, so they are responsible for portaging the canoe. Since this participant also weighs at least 175 pounds, they should be able to carry both the canoe and the 50-pound kitchen together. The bow paddler of boat crew A weighs at least 150 pounds, so this participant can portage the whale bag with the personal items for the boat crew. The remaining participant in boat crew A weighs at least 150 pounds, so this participant can portage a food bag for the crew all by themselves. If you'll look at boat crew A, the entire boat crew is self-sufficient, so this boat crew is not dependent upon another boat crew for help, and another boat crew is not dependent upon this boat crew for help. Boat crew B has a proficient paddler seated in the stern. This participant also is capable of transiting the canoe carefully all by themselves, so they are responsible for portaging the canoe. This participant is only carrying a Kevlar canoe, so their weight can be as low as 125 pounds. The remaining 2 participants in boat crew B, just like boat crew A, can portage the whale bag and food bag all by themselves. And also like the other boat crews, this boat crew is self-sufficient. Boat crew C has a proficient paddler seated in the stern. Since this participant is carrying the extra food bag for the crew, because this crew is on a longer trek, this participant will carry just this extra food bag until the crew has consumed the food out of this food bag, which will be about day 3 or 4. At this point, the empty food bag will be placed inside another food bag, and this participant will take over carrying the canoe from the interpreter for boat crew C. This participant weighs at least 150 pounds. The interpreter is graciously carrying the canoe for their boat crew and their interpreter pack at the same time. I am certainly not suggesting that your interpreter could be able to do this safely, so don't be upset if this option is not available to your crew. Remember, this is only a starting point, a plan. If your crew doesn't have a long trek, then you likely won't have the third food bag, and then the stern paddler for this boat crew will just portage the canoe for the whole trip, leaving the interpreter to only have to carry their interpreter pack. Remember, it would be desirable to not have the interpreter paddling for the first couple of days, so the interpreter can be free to assist the crew members with various things while on the water, like helping participants get better at paddling. The remaining participant in boat crew C is seated in the bow and weighs 150 pounds. This participant is carrying the whale bag for the other participant in this boat crew. All right, so we have created a portage plan for this crew. I want to remind you this crew likely has the most amount of equipment that you could probably have on a trek. So there are definitely some more options available to the crew if they're going on a shorter trek. If there are fewer than 8 participants going on the trek, then there'll be other accommodations needed to ensure that the crew can transit efficiently. So in the spirit of going to Northern Tier, you just have to embrace the experience. Again, if you have to get good at portaging to open up the map and to really allow you to experience all that Northern Tier has to offer. And it is spectacular. There are a lot of pretty places you can go, a lot of great things to see and do. You have to be good at portaging to access those places. Because some days, I've been on treks where we had 10 portages in one day. And it took us on average about, a few minutes each portage. We were very efficient, obviously depending on the length, but it didn't take us more than a couple of minutes to get out of the water and a couple of minutes to get back in the water as a crew. So we were able to make all those portages in one day and still paddle a lot of miles because we were efficient. If we weren't efficient, we wouldn't have been able to do that and our trip would have been miserable, or we would have stuck to just the big lakes and we really wouldn't have seen nearly as much. So I want to offer you encouragement. This is something that all crews go through. They have to figure this out. The sooner you figure it out, the better plan you have going to Northern Tier. And then once you arrive at Northern Tier and you finally have all of your things, which you really won't have until you are on the morning of going down to the water, you finalize what you're doing with your interpreter so that you don't show up to your first portage site, which will probably be on day 1. You will likely have a portage on day 1. Okay? So please be prepared, be moldable, be willing to listen to the interpreter, understand what your crew's strengths and weaknesses are, and finalize your plan. Make sure everybody understands what their plan is, so that when you get on the water and you arrive at your first portage site, you have set yourself up for success. All right, that wraps up this video. I hope you have a blessed trip.
Hey, I really hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you'd like to support this channel, remember, please subscribe to this channel, tell your friends about it. Thanks for hitting that like button. Everything here is free. I want to give back to the community. I want to give to you everything here for free. I've been out in the outdoors for a long, long time, and it's great that I can be able to give all this information to you. That is what's most important to me. If you would like to give back, I do have a GoFundMe page set up, and you can follow the link. And if you'd like to, if you're a youth with your parents' support, I would gladly accept your donations. Thank you, and have a blessed day.